Welcome to Reality with Bruce de Torres. With me is Dr. Peter McCullough, internist, cardiologist, and epidemiologist who manages common infectious diseases as well as the cardiovascular complications of both the viral infection and the injuries developing after the COVID-19 shot. He has broadly published on a range of topics in medicine with more than 1,000 publications and over 685 citations in the National Library of Medicine. He has dozens of peer-reviewed publications on the infection and has commented extensively on the medical response to the COVID-19 crisis in The Hill, America Out Loud, and on the Fox News channel. One more paragraph, Dr. McCullough. He has testified multiple times in the U.S. Senate, U.S. House of Representatives, Texas Senate Committee on Health and Human Services, Arizona Senate and House of Representatives, Colorado, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, South Carolina concerning many aspects of the pandemic response. In his years of combating the SARS-CoV-2 virus, he has reviewed thousands of reports, participated in scientific conferences, group discussions, and press releases, and has been considered among the world's experts on COVID-19. Thank you very much, Dr. McCullough, for joining me. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
I want to add my pleasure. You are also Chief Scientific Officer at the wellness company, TWC.Health. I am a proud member and affiliate myself. Also, you are president of McCullough Foundation, McCulloughFND.org. Co-author with John Leake of the best-selling The Courage to Face COVID-19, Preventing Hospitalization and Death While Battling the Biopharmaceutical Complex. You're the host of your own radio show at AmericaOutloud.com, and your Substack, also with John Leake, is petermcculloughmd.substack.com. Two big topics I just want to mention and then follow you as we explore them. What do you say to the people who still believe and to the doctors and medical journals who still push the idea that the COVID shots are safe and effective? Or first, if you'd like, what are you studying and educating people most about these days? So which of those two giant doors shall we go through?
The biggest issue on people's minds are the COVID-19 vaccines, no doubt about it. We're 4 years into this pandemic. The infection is very mild. Almost everybody's had it several times. Hospitals have been empty for a couple of years now. So the issue is really the vaccines. And I testified in Congress on January 12th, 2024, and I cited that day released a population-based survey by Rasmussen and colleagues demonstrating that 53% of Americans believe the COVID-19 vaccines are causing serious adverse events leading to large numbers of deaths. So I think that's a very, very important reflection of public sentiment and where we are right now. So what I'd say to those who are still pushing these or still encouraging vaccines, to look at where we are. The majority of the country thinks they're not safe. We have the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, one of the oldest trusted medical organizations in the country, chartered in all the states, calling for the vaccines to be pulled off the market. An international organization, the World Council for Health, kind of the alternative to the WHO, calling for the vaccines to be removed off the market. Myself in the US Senate, US Congress, lower house of Commons Parliament in the UK, in the European Parliament, the Brazilian Senate chamber, and Florida Surgeon General Joe Ladapo. The COVID Summit group has 17,000 doctors who think the vaccine should be pulled off the market. We don't even talk about if a product works. If it's not safe, it should be off the market.
And that's worth emphasizing over and over and over again, because I am appalled. I barely know how to talk about anything else or think about anything else. The thousands of doctors, the thousands of clinics, the medical journals, to me are, and to many who are in the fields and who can get their voices heard, the enormity of the corruption. Do you want to comment on that, or do you want to continue discussing what we the people can do to push for an acknowledgement and then some official rolling out of other kind of remedies? Maybe that's the door to talk about the wellness company, but I hope I made a cogent point about the absolutely frightening reality that this implies, that so many doctors and people and institutions of authority did this to us and continue to do it to us.
Well, let's talk about what we know the vaccines do in terms of side effects. So, coming up on 4,000 peer-reviewed papers in the medical literature with a heavy bias against publication of side effects. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. But what do we know from these 4,000 papers? The vaccines for sure cause cardiac side effects, myocarditis, heart inflammation, cardiac arrest. Our FDA agrees to this. Our FDA and all regulatory agencies say the vaccines cause heart damage. That should cause anybody to stop in their tracks. The vaccines accelerate atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. They prompt heart attacks, permanent heart damage, cause arrhythmias like atrial fibrillation, ventricular tachycardia. The vaccines cause neurologic problems, both ischemic and hemorrhagic stroke, Guillain-Barré syndrome, and transverse myelitis. These are forms of paralysis, small fiber neuropathy, seizures, hearing loss, vision loss. This is now actually proven in the peer-reviewed literature. Third major area is blood clots. These are the largest blood clots we've ever seen. Can go from all the way from the ankle to the hip, shoot to the lungs, and be fatal. We see this every day now in our offices, blood clots that don't dissolve with typical blood thinners. Fourth major area is immunologic problems like forms of blood vessel inflammation. The blood tests for autoimmune illnesses turn positive. And it can cause not only skin rashes, but joint problems, kidney failure. And then a fifth emerging area is not proven, but very, very concerning, is cancer. And so when I testified in Congress, I was asked by the congressman, Dr. McCullough, how long is this going to last? And I said, well, our FDA says from the time of the last shot for a novel genetic therapy, like the COVID-19 vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, or Janssen, that we have a 5-year minimum to probably 15 years on the outer edge of worry, regulatory worry. Anything that pops up in the next 5 to 15 years, we should think first that it's caused by the COVID-19 vaccines because they're novel, long-lasting genetic transfer technology. This is horrifying for about 75% of Americans who took the shot. I mean, this is this really is the reality that we are facing at this point in time. Now, Why did they subscribe to this so widely? Well, I can tell you, I was at a major academic medical center when these rolled out, and when the vaccines first rolled out, Pfizer was the first one out of the gate. The clinical trials took 1 month to give the primary series, the 2 shots, and then 2 months of observation only. That was the only duration of time that we could possibly know about the shots. They weren't tested in people who already had COVID, pregnant women. So it was only to prevent the first episode of COVID. So everybody who took a shot had no idea what was going to happen on month 4 and 5 or 6. None. They didn't know if it was 2 shots and you're done, or was it going to be boosters for life? No one knew. So what happened is people took these vaccines with the presumption that they were going to be safe and effective. Because again, no one could have known. They took them on faith. In fact, the American Board of Internal Medicine, that first week, told doctors that they should all take the shot and they should take pictures of themselves, selfies taking the shot, and encourage their patients to do so. When we look back on this, this is completely reckless to expose a huge population to a brand new vaccine, set of vaccines that were genetic, and with no information on what was going to happen after 3 months. It was absolutely reckless. Now, what we've learned is the vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna specifically, but about the 75% of Americans took a vaccine, 94% of them took Pfizer and Moderna, so we can focus on them. The vaccines install the genetic code for the lethal part of the virus. The COVID virus was engineered in the Wuhan, China biosecurity lab. The spike protein, or the spicule on the side of the virus, that has all the lethality of COVID-19 packed into that protein. Pfizer Moderna is the genetic code for the lethal part of the virus. And once the genetic code is installed in the body, what's going to shut it off? How can we prevent somebody from getting a lethal dose of spike protein?
I want to share 3 reflections on what you just shared. As a layperson, in 2020, while the conversation was about lockdowns and the conversation was about warp speed and getting a vaccine ASAP, I was under the impression, the conviction, that vaccines take 7 to 12 to 10 years. So the idea in early 21 and everybody lining up and all the encouragement to get it. And if I know that, doctors and nurses knew that, our enemy. Our challenge is human nature, the love of a paycheck, the fear of standing out. How come legions more of medical professionals didn't just drop the robes and just say, I'd rather drive an Uber than be party to this? You mentioned cancer, I think, but no, you reminded me of your colleague at the wellness company, Dr. William Makis, who I interviewed on my old show, and his Substack is invaluable, as is yours, but his is, I believe, very much focused on the cancers, what he's calling turbo cancers, and what other people are seeing. So that's an example of what you said. Hey, in the next 5 to 15 years, we have no idea what's going to come out, but also to the lethality and the permanent embedding of the harm. Dr. Naomi Wolf at Daily Cloud is pumping out analysis, not only of the Pfizer documents, but currently the reports, and maybe you've seen them too, of the impact down to the fetal level, but down to the DNA of fetuses. That's the next generation. Those are the future generations of humanity. Is that how big and deep it goes in your impression?
It is. The biology of this is absolutely frightening. We now know the messenger RNA is circulating in blood for at least a month, stuck in lymph nodes for a couple of months, it may be longer. Hopefully, ribodeoxynucleases break it down. Looks like they do in vitro studies. The spike protein, the lethal part of the virus, is produced in the full-length pre-fusion conformation. Pfizer and Moderna intentionally manipulated it to hold the spike protein open like a circulatory spear, and it gathers in groups of 3. It trimerizes. This spike protein travels in the blood, as shown by Brogna and colleagues in Germany, for at least a month, in 6 months, in half of those who take the virus. That is the spike protein in the bloodstream for 6 months. Then if someone's following the government instructions, they take another shot. So they get even more spike protein to circulate for another 6 months. This spike protein is the most disease-causing protein I've ever seen in clinical medicine. I'm in my 4th decade of practice. It's found everywhere. It's been found in the heart, the blood vessels, the adrenal glands, the brain. It's causing the blood clots. It's formed in the blood clots. It goes to the ovaries, the reproductive tissues. The messenger RNA also has a toxicity.
But just to interject here, an examination of the percentages and how many of the batches may have been inert because 53% of Americans, you say, believe they know someone or they believe that it's injurious and contributing to death. I think you said 74% of Americans took at least one of them, and 90-some% of those were the Pfizer and the Moderna. Yet, it's what percentage, ballparking, or maybe you've got statistics, what percentage of Americans, given those numbers, who took at least one jab had adverse or death, and what percentage are still seemingly scot-free?
This is what we know. An important paper by Schmeling and colleagues from Denmark, published in the peer-reviewed literature, had all the Pfizer data, all the side effects. 30% of people who took Pfizer, nothing happened. Not even a sore arm, no side effects whatsoever. It looks like they're off scot-free. Just slightly under 2/3 took the shot and had some moderate side effects. And we're down to 4.2% of the shots or doses in those batches cause serious side effects relatively quickly. Now, the US CDC vSafe data, 10 million Americans. CDC did not want to release this information to the public. It had to be released under court order. What we found out there is 7.7% of Americans who take the shots get so sick they have to go to the urgent care, ER, or be hospitalized. So it's somewhere between 5 and 10% of people. We're really worried about it. And they know we're worried because they've gotten sick with the shots initially. In a paper by Holscher and colleagues, I'm the senior author, we published on fatal cases of myocarditis. The average death occurs about 6 days after the shot. So it's pretty quick what's happening. And so what we're hoping is that if people get farther and farther in time away from these shots, that the risk goes down, that certainly not taking additional shots is very important. Very few people are taking additional shots, but our CDC has just come out with guidance saying that healthy people like you and me should be on our 9th shot, and that immunocompromised would be on approximately 12 shots. One should ask themselves, what vaccine does it take 9 shots for a normal person?
It's so hard not to conclude such an evil intent. Putting that aside, the enormity of, well, if you want to jump into your thoughts, your impression of what we're being corralled to, if the United States doesn't actively, I think we would have to reject the protocols of the World Health Organization's amendments coming up in May. Tell me all you can about that.
Well, we're in an election year. So the first litmus test for candidates is, do they recognize what's going on? So our CDC tells us right now we're at about 18,500 Americans that they have documented have died due to the vaccine. Our CDC has documented this, and you can go on the adverse event reporting system and actually just look it up. The open VAERS overlay is a perfectly valid way to do that. Now, of those 18,500, 1,150 die right in the vaccine center or a few hours later. No one can dispute that people should not walk into a vaccine center, a CVS or Walgreens, and drop dead in the center or a few hours later. Another 1,200 died the next day.
But pause. Those numbers alone, which might be underestimated by up to a factor of 100, depending on whomever, but those numbers alone in the more sane past caused the withdrawal of the drugs, vaccines, whatever, that might have caused 25 deaths, something like that.
For sure. Definitely under 50 deaths. As the deaths started coming in, there should have been emergency meetings. This got so far that papers were published. There was a paper published by Gill and colleagues. The Connecticut coroner, 2 boys, age 16 and 17, take Pfizer. And on days 3 and 4 after Pfizer, separately, the parents find the boys dead in bed. And they get autopsies. And the Connecticut coroner calls in University of Michigan, University of Minnesota. They do a collaborative evaluation of what happened to these boys, and they conclude the vaccine killed the boys. This should have been an immediate halt to the vaccine program. So you're right, just the numbers we're talking about, of which there's great assuredness, and even peer-reviewed publications, they weren't pulled off the market. So how big is this for the candidates out there? A conservative number in the FDA open meeting minutes over the course of the last 4 years is for death is underreported by 30. So I make VAERS entries every week, and I can tell you, I only enter VAERS as a doctor. I put all my medical information in there. It's punishable by imprisonment or fines if I'm falsifying. So believe me, theirs is very accurate. When I put something in there, it's because the vaccine has caused the problem, in my judgment. And my judgment ultimately is the final authority. Now, if it's underestimated by 30, we're talking about 550,000 Americans have died due to the vaccine program. Every candidate must be very alarmed by this. This is more than Civil War casualties, more than World War II casualties. Very important.
Yeah. But I only am aware of Kennedy as a candidate. I don't know what Marianne Williamson says about it, but the two majors aren't close to acknowledging this, in my understanding.
Well, I'm going to be a keynote speaker at the Libertarian Party convention. So I'll tell you, Libertarians will be fully informed. Kennedy's fully informed.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting. The two majors, a Trump-Biden rematch, they have actually not distinguished each other from this. In fact, Trump recently aligned with Biden on the vaccines after Biden mentioned the vaccines and made false claims about the vaccines in the presidential State of the Union address. So Trump is aligned with Biden. So it's a wonderful opportunity for one of the two candidates to actually distinguish themselves. If Trump wants to be better than Biden, this is his golden political opportunity. And I think it's the blunder of the century from a political perspective for him to keep his alignment with Biden, who from many points of view has been a terrible 4 years for us.
I've been a student of American history all my life and the presidencies in general, and then specifically John F. Kennedy, like an obsessed lunatic. And then I put out a book called God School, 9/11 and JFK, The Lies That Are Killing Us and the Truth That Sets Us Free. And Lisa Pease is a Kennedy researcher who has written tons about all the assassinations of the 60s, definitely the Kennedys. I don't know about the other two, but she recently said, she heard another researcher say when they killed President Kennedy, they killed the presidency. And Trump and Biden and Obama and the Bushes and Clinton and Reagan, doctor, they've all been in my rear view mirror as a clown act, as beneath my intelligence, knowing what I know about what are the ideals of America, what's the potential, and the good that presidents like Kennedy and FDR and Lincoln and a couple others really, really wanted to preside over a republic where we, the people, speak law to our representatives. So what's my point? With Kennedy today in the race, the presidential election and race becomes interesting. Other than that, it's puppet one or puppet two, or it's competing ignoramuses. That's Bruce's rant on the presidency.
Well, think about this, that we have roughly 15% of the population it's safe to say they've been affected by the pandemic, lost loved ones with COVID or the vaccine, very angry about pandemic response. The final year of the Trump presidency was a disaster in terms of walked us into the pandemic. His selection and advocacy for Anthony Fauci, who, there are books written why Fauci needs to be in jail. Trump with the lockdowns and masking and social distancing and the vaccines, the suppression of early treatment. Trump's fourth year was a colossal failure. And then to have now the Biden administration continue the Trump's failure, this 15%, maybe more of the population, they're probably going to vote. And, the virus and the vaccine, both as injury mechanisms, they're equal opportunity killers. And so we can expect, both Democrats and Republicans to be really influenced by this. Yeah. So you're right. I think there's an opportunity for votes to go to the third party. People say, well, who's it going to hurt more? I said, it kind of doesn't matter as long as the two majors are aligned on the vaccine debacle.
Right. And if Trump would equally with Biden, one could assume, allow us to be handcuffed by the World Health Organization, then Kennedy really is our only. He's a Hail Mary opportunity, in my opinion.
Well, but I'll put some color on this now. To be fair to Trump, Trump said he would never mandate the vaccines, and he's stuck by that. And you can imagine a world where the vaccines were never mandated. Most people I talk to who've taken the vaccines, they actually felt forced into it for employment or other reasons. So I'll give Trump credit there. I have been on the show for Lara Trump, his daughter-in-law. She knows the vaccines are not safe. I can tell you that firsthand. And she's now been positioned in the Republican National Committee. So the Republican National Committee knows because Lauren knows. So I'm not worried about, lack of information. I've had more media time than Trump has in the last 4 years. So, I mean, people know that, certainly the message is out there. Now, what Trump could do is do the following. He could come out and say, listen, I was lied to by Anthony Fauci, that I've now, become fully informed of what's happened with the vaccines, and the safety disaster rolled out under Biden's watch, not Trump's watch. And Trump could just say, listen, when I get in office, I'm going to do everything I can to make this right. And then I think there would be a gush of votes for Trump. They would come gushing in. What Trump insiders have told me is that he's simply not strong enough to admit he's wrong. I think that's a problem, honestly. If a president doesn't have the moral strength to admit he's wrong, I think that's tough. But they all tell me that. They tell me he's too weak to admit he's wrong.
It reminds me, now he's in my mental evaluation of presidents. There's a small collection of Shakespearean and Olympian tragic comic figures like Lyndon Baines Johnson and Richard Nixon, and you just got Trump in that small circle in my head of like fascinating, tragic, because there's so much humanity in that human flaw and fear of looking bad. I mean, I relate to that. So, but I'm not trying to be president.
Well, people have said, well, who am I endorsing? I'm a political independent. Independents have to be kind of stronger than Democrats or Republicans because they actually have to discern and make their choices. People who are in one tribe or the other can simply get into tribal thinking. So I'm a political independent. And I said, listen, I haven't endorsed anybody, but I'd be happy to sit down and talk to each one of the candidates. And, I'm one of the most published people on the pandemic. I've given more media commentary, more Senate and congressional testimony, European Parliament testimony. I'm more than qualified to give some advice to any one of the candidates. And let me tell you, the phone has not rung.
Well, guess what? After this, or maybe where you're saying this elsewhere, if you are, maybe, nah, but not if Trump can't. But here's the other good news based on what we're talking about. I've seen over and over and over. Oh, here. To those who follow the mainstream media, Doctor, they might think half the country is Republican and half the country is Democrat. Oh, no, mon ami. The polling shows about 25% and 25% identify as Republican or Democrat, and about the rest, the vast majority, identify as independent, or they're just agnostic or apathetic, and they ignore the whole thing. And that's Kennedy's opportunity, and that's the opportunity for the truth, especially if the 15% who are convinced of the harms of the vaccine get active and open their mouth and just say, whatever we do, we got to vote for people who are going to protect us from this, and also pursue justice. I just spoke with Warner Mendenhall for an hour and talked about the litigations and the lawsuits and from that angle of it. So those are reasons to be cheerful. To continue talking about reasons to be cheerful at the risk of intercepting further commentary on what we just were talking about, I want to talk about the wellness company, and I want to find from you all the other things that people can tap into to empower themselves with truths and actual things we can do to help ourselves in all these areas.
Well, the wellness company, I tell you, wow, what an innovation. It was started by e-commerce juggernaut Foster Coulson, who comes from a storied family in British Columbia. Coulson Aviation, one of the top aviation companies in the whole world. Foster brought myself and several other esteemed colleagues on a medical board. I'm the chief scientific officer from the very beginning, and it's a nationwide health alternative, health and education materials, nutraceuticals and supplements, has its own pharmacy, its own medical group of doctors for telemedicine, community dentistry, and is so affordable. It's cash-based, or people can pay out of health savings accounts, and a doctor's visit as low as $60 on demand. It has memberships that allow access, deep discounts on products. Has One Wellness, which is a fee under $200 per month for unlimited doctor's visits, nutraceuticals, and supplements. And the drug costs are very low as people bring all their drug prescriptions into the wellness company. Wow, what an offering. Mm-hmm. This can be in addition to people's health insurance, can be in place for those without health insurance. Honestly, I think it's a must-have. Wellness company has the lead product for detoxification in 2 peer-reviewed studies, a way to handle long COVID and the COVID-19 vaccine debacle, and that's spike support. Spike support is combined in a trio called Ultimate Spike Detox with curcumin and bromelain. And this is now standard of care for post-COVID syndrome. This has been a wonderful advance. And we use it extensively for detoxification after COVID-19 vaccination. We have, in addition, at the Wellness Company, medical kits. These are home emergency kits. There's 4 of them, and they allow someone to diagnose their own problems, manage them at home with the assistance of telemedicine visit if needed. But that way, the drugs and all the supplies are on hand, and one doesn't have to go to ER, urgent care, or run to the pharmacy to handle a problem.
Mm-hmm. And the site is twc.health. And I talked to, like I say, I've interviewed Dr. William Makis, and let me go to my notes because my head is spinning, Doctor. I will confess, with all the good that I want to pull out of you. For instance, your Substack, petermcculloughmd.substack. Do you want to explain more about the Wellness Company, or talk about what you're publishing and posting out there, and what you're studying, and what you want to bring out over the next few months in your personal empowerment of the public, in addition to being a practicing physician?
So I'm in practice 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, in McKinney, Texas, both internal medicine, non-invasive cardiology. I serve as the chief scientific officer of the Wellness Company. I have really the leading medical Substack called Courageous Discourse. I write it with John Leake, a best-selling author. We cover all the late-breaking information on pandemic issues, COVID, long COVID, vaccine injuries, other relevant topics with the graphical abstracts. About 90% of it's free of charge. Everybody should sign up for Courageous Discourse. So when we mention a paper, all the papers I mentioned on today's interview are right there on Courageous Discourse. We can pull them, look at the graphical abstracts, make sure that we have great, again, courageous discussions over what's being observed. My book, Courage to Face COVID, is a best-selling book. It's probably the best book in the COVID genre because John Leake is a best-selling author. Doctors and lawyers, other people really just can't write gripping true crime novels, and it is a crime. And in that book, we've identified the biopharmaceutical complex as, we believe, a carefully coordinated group of perpetrators. And the crimes that were committed throughout this were, number one, fraud. People weren't told the truth, and that led to mass negligent homicide. That means people died unnecessarily because of the suppression of early treatment, and now because of mass vaccination. We have a circumstance where the perpetrators are well identified in the book. We think that's the reason why Amazon tried to ban this book last fall. They were unsuccessful in doing so. But at the top, the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the Gates Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, Wellcome Trust, CEPI, Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness and Innovation that Gates and WEF founded, Gavi, Unitaid, UNAID, the Department of State in the United States.
These are such huge and powerful institutions and
Massive.
organizations that are driving a juggernaut that really, really wants to crush us, especially with what the World Health Organization has queued up. At the risk of interrupting you, you mentioned long COVID, and I saved a couple articles, but I haven't had a chance to click into them that are showing, wait a minute, is it really such a thing, or is it just a cover for vaccine injury? What do you know about that?
A paper by Diexner has been very helpful from Germany, 48,000 patients with long COVID. The analysis is about 70% of it's really due to the vaccines. People take the vaccines, they don't work, they get COVID, and then they are persistently sick afterwards, or vice versa. They get the infection, they get the vaccine, and they're sick. So about 70% of long COVID, and that's what I see in my practice. That's cohesive.
Thank you. Talk, if you wouldn't mind, in our last stretch around the horn here, Doctor, about how urgent it is, and this is the leading question, I'm guilty as charged, of how urgent it is for each and every American, healthy or not, took a shot or not, to get up to speed about these issues to the extent that they're comfortable talking about them and doing what they can, because our problem is the corruption of the institutions that are supposed to work for us while we pay them with our taxes. Talk about the urgency of everybody watching less Netflix, playing fewer video games, watching less sports, drinking less on the weekend, and building into their lives activism to recreate America.
People need to be personally active with their health. Listen, we've been told disease X is coming. It's going to be 20 times more deadly than COVID. These are the same people who warned us that COVID was coming and we didn't pay attention. We should pay attention. Everybody needs to drop some weight, get fit, get on a better diet, probably immune boosting vitamins as a baseline. Wellness Company has many offerings. That's for starters. Number two, everyone should understand that something has gone wrong. Our federal agencies have actually made decisions and taken actions that have harmed the public, not protected the public. They've caused harm, injuries, disabilities, and deaths because of action by our federal agencies and actually the medical system as well. Everyone needs to understand they are responsible for themselves. They have to do their own research, do their own homework. Do not trust information that comes from simply a position of authority like a government agency or a major health system or medical school. Everyone has to understand they have to seek a variety of opinions. They actually have to watch independent media like your show, get opinions from people like myself and many others. It's through discussion and bringing the data forward that we'll find our way out of this. We cannot take another government mandate of any type.
No, and especially to look at the proof of the data that any espouser puts forward. And unfortunately, as Steve Kirsch makes a great case for month in and month out for years now, the institutions of power are not proving their assertions. They don't have the data to show that any vaccine in the history of time is safe and effective. Yet he's crunching and publishing, this is my data that's proving this is how harmful it is. And he's besmeared as a misinformation super spreader. And right there, people using their common sense. I almost climbed on a soapbox there, Doctor. What are your final thoughts before we bid adieu?
Beware of propaganda. Propaganda now has formally entered the medical literature, has formally entered the conversation. You used one of the propaganda terms. So when you hear the term misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, anti-science, anti-vaxxer, conspiracy theorist, those are terms right out of the Nazi Germany playbook for propaganda. They have no place in contemporary American, dialectic. They don't. When people are using those terms, they are attempting to achieve a power dynamic. They are trying to assert that they hold the truth, and anybody who disagrees with them can be castigated and denigrated. Don't accept that. It doesn't exist. This is a novel pandemic. These are novel vaccines. We are making our observations. No one holds the truth. Everyone has to do their own research and come up with their own conclusions.
Before I name some of your sources again and bid us a fond farewell, I'll talk about 3 books. The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by William L. Shirer, published 1961, which is an in-depth examination of how the Nazis rose to power and how they slowly turned the public mind into believing insanities. 2 books by the late, great Jim Marrs, Rule by Secrecy, great subtitle, I forget what it is, and also The Rise of the Fourth Reich, which talks about how we've been captured by a lot of the same awful money powers capturing governments, media, and other institutions like pharmaceuticals and manufacturing and arms munition that built up the Soviet Union and built up Nazi Germany based out of Wall Street. So we've got our work cut out for us. We live in a great adventure. Unfortunately, lately, it's a bad James Bond movie with the likes of Klaus Schwab. Dr. Peter McCullough can and should be followed at his Substack, petermcculloughmd.substack.com. The book I can't wait to get, The Courage to Face COVID-19, Prevent Hospitalization and Death While Battling the Biopharmaceutical Complex and the Wellness Company, twc.health. It's been an honor and a privilege. I will be in touch with you by email, begging you at some point in the future to do this again. This is only my second show. It's the first day of my brand new show. I am so honored you were with me. This is Reality with Bruce de Torres, wishing everybody a really great day.
Dog was a really good dog, chasing the ball